So let me start this presentation by acknowledging the important developments made by Tom Sati and Luis Vargas regarding the uses of the supermatrix. And just let me stress that one important aspect of solving the supermatrix is that one solution of the supermatrix corresponds to the Bayes theorem. So in discussions with Luis Vargas some years ago, I started to develop some ideas how to operationalize the supermatrix approach in some other fields. And in this case, okay. The problem I'm going to address is the case of environmental tort claims. In the world, large infrastructure investments are being challenged by grassroots organizations, citizens, non-governmental organizations are suing governments and corporations in pursuit of environmental justice. This is especially true in cases such as man-made disasters, such as mine spills that occur all over the world. But there are so many other cases. So one technical tool that governments are recording is the post-event impact assessments that are used by the courts to ascertain the linkage between evidence and tortious conduct. So a post-event impact environmental assessment is a retrospective approach based on expert judgment. So what you are asking the experts is to go to a site, check the evidence available to them, and judge the truth of an environmental tort claims. But in court, this is very difficult because what you're asking is to ascertain if an environmental damage is or was caused by tortious conduct. For example, if you have a mine spill and you have toxic acidic solutions in the river coming out from a mine, and you see some dead trees along the water course, the problem is if what causes that the death of those trees, because you're looking at the alleged environmental damage without proving that it was caused by the causal agent. That is the metal, the heavy metals in the water, coming from the mine, not coming from other source. So we have uncertain causal mechanisms and conflicted evidence. So what we asking the experts is to look at, is like looking at an egg and infer or make conjectures that that egg is going to become some kind of bird. So that's a very difficult task to carry out, especially because experts, especially scientists, typically follow narrow lines of thoughts and often disagree. So in many cases, you have an expert, like in our case, I would propose that geologists claiming that in cases such as the one I described, it's normal to have heavy loads of metal, heavy metals, heavy metal concentrations in water. So you have this expert claiming that it might not be the case that the alleged environmental damage was caused by an accident, like a mine spill. That would be like the expert acting like a Superman, solving everything. On the other hand, you have people like myself, biologists, that act like prophets and say that environmental damage is terrible and we're doomed. The problem is, how reliable are these experts, or any experts? So let's take a following example. This is taken from a real case that I'm not able to disclose the details because it's still in litigation in Mexico. So suppose you have a holding point from a double K mine that fails and releases large amounts of metal contaminated waters into public water course. The plume floats 200 kilometers downstream and contaminated natural ecosystems, agricultural lands, and wells. We know that. Metal concentration above tolerable thresholds were detected in soil and water samples. The problem is if those concentrations come from the mine spill or not. That's the case in the court, and you have to prove that. And what basically you have is something like that. You have the accident, that you have this in the above water, so upstream, you have the accident, that you have the river, and then you check different claims of environmental damage, like problem with the fishes, the fish populations across the water course, dead trees, or some other damage in the ecosystems, and is what you see when you go to the field. You have, for example, an evidence that what happened is that you had that plume of contaminated waters in the river, but later on, what you see is a clean river behind. So what kind of environmental damage occurred in these cases? Because the evidence, what it is evidence in courts, is not what you see like this, but is some sort of data. So what we have here, for example, at the very top, those are the distribution of the frequency distributions of fish populations on the right at the very top. What you can see is that the fishes, the young fishes, the light design we design, are absent. From the samplings that were on the other side, the control side, you have a normal distribution of the age categories for the fishes. So the thing is, there's some hypotheses of what occurred to this part. One of the hypotheses that the water contaminated plume killed the adult fishes in the populations. And now what you're looking at 1 year after the accident is that the area has been repopulated by the younger classes of fishes. But some other experts said that that's not the case, that it was actually large amounts of flooding events caused by extraordinary rainfall occurring within that year. So who's right and who's wrong? You only have this kind of charts. Or you have the problem with the trees. Like this, it's the same thing. You have the mortality trees with the dead trees distributions that are in violet, the violet dots, and in comparison with the control site, that you have this the light trees in blue. So you have the different distributions. So the problem is those were those trees dead before the accident, or the accident caused the dead trees that killed the trees. And finally, you have some sort of analysis of the concentration, the high concentrations in wells of polluted waters. And again, is what you present in court, and you have the debate between the experts. So what we implemented was an post-event impact assessment process in which we tested the hypothesis of the causal mechanisms that explain the evidence of the environmental damage. And we use abducted reasoning, which is the search for the best explanation, comparing different hypotheses, and counterfactual analysis. These are the formal way of you may do that. I will get into details of these procedures. But basically, what you have to test, to try, is the errors in the conjectures or the hypothesis that the experts claim. So everybody is now familiar with this, with the true positive rate and false positive rate, false negative rate, and true negative rate from all these COVID tests we had to take for the past 2 years: false positive, false negative. So basically, what you have the evidence of environmental harm, as well as the expert judgments. And if you have that the evidence, the environmental harm was true, an expert judgment said it's true, you have a positive result. But if you say that the environmental harm is true, and in reality it didn't happen, environmental harm is false, you have a false positive result. And you do the same with the false negative and the true negatives. The problem that you face is that you don't have a means to develop these probability functions that you have, like I'm illustrating above, but you have test positive and test negative, because the only have you at hand is expert knowledge. So what we implemented was the matrix form of the Bayes theorem, published like Satya and Vargas in '98, that was used in the case of medical diagnosis. The important thing is that you get the result in terms of probabilities that we have in that equation below. So that's the solution equation for solving the metric-based problem. So now what we do with those probabilities is to use the procedure used in courts all over the world, which is the weight of evidence. That was proposed by Good in the 1970s. And basically it's the logarithm of the Bayes factor. And you have the Bayes factor for the claim that the evidence is that the evidence you're looking at actually is the evidence of environmental was caused by the accident and by the environmental tort, by the tortious conduct, divided by the probability that is the contract. That is not the case. So you compare two different hypotheses, and that's one part. And the other is clairvoyance analysis. That's a term proposed by Howard. That is, it's a means to have the relative information value of a claim. So what you do with the information value, you have the difference between the false positive rate and the false negative rate multiplied by the weight of evidence and normalized to the maximum possible value of clairvoyance. Well, this is how it works. So what you have here is what you develop is a surface like that, because in any problem you have two ways of being right or two ways of being wrong. You may correctly reject a hypothesis, which would be a high value of our index, or you can have you can correctly accept a hypothesis, which is the other point. Or the opposite, you can wrongly accept or wrongly reject a hypothesis. So in our index, what you have is a gradient from opacity when the clairvoyance value tends to -1. And in this case, we call it a fortune teller. The expert actually doesn't know, can support this claim. And you should reject any hypothesis, either accepting or the claim of tortoise value or rejecting the claim of tortoise values. If you have a negative value, you have to reject. But if you have a positive value and it is as close to 1, you have clarity. And that is the case you have the comparing with the Laplace's daemon, which is a being that knows where each particle in the universe is in any time. So you have this difference. So how it works in reality. So the first thing we had to do is to develop the subjective probability. So we use the AHP comparing claims or confidence or plausibility, that being confidence the prior probability and plausibility the likelihood of the Bayes theorem, with linguistic terms that correspond to with the fundamental scale of the AHP. And the important thing is that the Walstein scale that we have, the linguistic variables, this has they have been tested experimentally, that people basically can use these terms and distinguish. So what we let the experts is to discuss the confidence on the presence of the causal agent, in this case the high concentration of metals coming from the accident, from the spill, and the possibility of the causal mechanisms that they're by which they're describing the cause effect as of the observed environmental damage. So again, you have the prior probability and the likelihood that you have for the Bayesian theorem. So what it follows is for example, you have a confidence in the case that is claimed to be preponderant, and you have the value of this probability. In this case, is that there was a high probability that the environmental quarter was present and the causal agent was present, and you have the policy as convincing the mechanism that actually it killed the adult fishes. Kill the defaunated that part of the water course, and you have the likelihood of that probability. So you develop your you solve the Bayes theorem using Satis and Vargas procedures. Those are just example of the calculations. And then you apply the weight of evidence and the information value, the Laboratorio analysis, and you have the value of 0.83. That's close to 1. So then you should say that that claim should be accepted. But now you may contrast it with the other claim that it was not that case, but it was not the high water concentration from of heavy metals that kill the fishes, but it was unusual, extraordinary flooded events that also kill the trees, kill the fishes, defaunated the fishes. So you let the experts decide that. And in that case, the plausibility value was totally different, and that this is the case. You have the same evidence. So you have confidence preponderance that the spill flowed through the sample site, and that happened. So hypothesis one was the concentration of the toxicity solution killed sensitive fish populations and interrupted renal reproductive cycle. So when you solve this problem, the probability of H is convincing, that mechanism that I'm describing. So then you accept H1. But now you have the other experts saying that this was extraordinary events. So then the possibility in this case was just at most random. Remember the scale. And given the random, that gives you an clairvoyance value that is negative. So then you have reject H2. So in that case, in front of the courts, the expert judgment on the left side has more credibility than the expert judgment on the other side. And you may also say that in order to improve the value of the judgment of supporting H2, you have to come up with a better mechanism, explanatory mechanism how it happened. So the conclusion, we have shown an implementation of the HP to obtain subjective probabilities for confidence and plausibility, the prior likelihood. And we have shown also the usefulness of using the matrix form of the Bayes theorem to convert those probabilities in something useful for developing this combination of weight of evidence, clairvoyance analysis that allows you testing the reliability of expert judgment considering uncertain environmental tort cases. And in this case, in our case, we actually use this for solving conflicts between experts addressing these contentious issues. And again, this is still in court in Mexico in an actual case, and we found this a way to solve the problem with the expert judgment. So the reliability, who you should believe in a very uncertain case, and the approach may have further applications. So I'll stop here.
Very nice talk, Luis.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Luis. So now it's time for questions. Is there anybody in this room that would like to raise questions to Luis regarding his presentation? Please, Enrique, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, Luis, a very interesting presentation. I was thinking, basically what you have done is you've developed a way to determine the reliability of an expert. My question is, if this has been tested in court, I mean, has been used in court, because I'm thinking that if you present this in court, the reliability of an expert is so-and-so, I wonder that your presentation is just an expert's testimony, you know, the same as the other experts. So in other words, I wonder if you have any experience in how has this been accepted or whether it can be accepted in actual court, because that would be the most important application based on the title of the presentation.
Yes, these are results of an actual case of a mine spill in a public water course in Mexico. And the problem we faced, we were integrating the whole information of the post-event environmental peak assessment. These cases are of such complexity and implications that actually integrating the information becomes very difficult. And based what you typically face are at least two camps. One is the one of the environmentalists, and the other one is the one of the geologists. In this case, in particular, and these camps are represented by academic institutions. I mean, they're represented by science. So you have experts evaluating the same evidence, like the trees, the populated river courses, or this phenomena, and they have hypotheses on the causes of that. And of course, what you have the problem you have in this case is overdetermination. For the same evidence, you have many explanations, many possible causes. So what you have in court then is a judge that doesn't know anything about science or contamination. It's an environmental judge, but actually is not an expert in every field. And then you have the problem, which expert you should rely upon your verdict. And the experts come from academic institutions, even from our same university. So in this way, what we propose is this means to question the experts about how they judge evidence. And the likelihood, which is equivalent of the explanatory mechanisms, the likelihood in the base theorem, what we're saying is come up with a good explanatory mechanisms that actually can support your judgment. So this, you enter in this dialogue with experts. You organize a very difficult and harsh discussion between these two camps, and then you have this exchange of ideas on and judgments on the quality of the mechanisms in linguistic terms. So the only way it occurred to me to do this thing was to hurry up and check what has been published about this. And of course, I found Tom Satti's and Luis Vargas' paper on how on the Bayesian solution, the Bayes theorem. So thank you, Luis. You saved the day.
Thank you.